Around the world. Hello, Sheita.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning.
Yes, let's get into what is trending today. Let's start with this story. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Dangiwa, and the Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, have jointly inspected a confiscated estate comprising of 753 housing units previously owned by former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. Now, the estate in Abuja was recovered by the EFCC and handed over to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development following a directive from President Bola Tinubu. During the inspection on Wednesday, Dangiwa said the ministry would begin technical assessments, including integrity tests on the buildings. He added that once cleared, Haiba released a statement yesterday and said that the government of the day is very serious about fighting corruption, and he described this as a landmark recovery as one of the most significant in the nation's history within a short span of time. 753 housing units. That's a lot.
And that's a landmark recovery. And kudos to this government as regards that. That's a landmark recovery because when that case, was on, and I think most of the part of that case is still on, Anyway, there's been a rebuttal also too. They're saying that the houses were linked to Emefiele, that is not really the case and all of that. And the government is insisting and said, okay, it's houses recovered from Emefiele. But whatever it is, corruption has no place in our country and it should be totally condemned. But it also needs to go across board. If this government is saying that they're fighting corruption, we need to get a report of what has transpired during the Beta Edu's case. We need to get a report of what transpired during, what is it called? I've talked about the Beta Edu's case. We need to also get a report of what transpired, other corruption cases and allegations that have transpired since the time of this government. We need to get a holy. I know the Minister of Health has talked about the fact that Minister of Education has talked about the fact that there's no corruption in health fund and all of that. We also need to get a proper investigation into all that has transpired. We also need to look holistically into what has transpired with the NNPC. How this government spent over billions, Warrior and Port Harcourt refinery, and we need to get receipts so that it's holistic across board. The fight against corruption, we also need to get to the end of the Yaya Bello case. Also, we also need to look at what has transpired, this Naira flunking, whatever, and everything. Don't decimate the Naira and everything and all of that. There are some people that we have seen videos of them spraying Naira. Till today, the EFCC said they will call up Tom Polo. We are still waiting for that. This fight against corruption must not be selective. It must be seen to be spread across board. All the recovery must be based. About over a year after now, we've not seen the full investigative report. If Beta Edu is free, what really transpired? We need to be able to get accountability. That's just it. It's not only one-sided fight against corruption. That's just my point. But this is a good one, and good one, this government.
Very quickly, there's a bill that has passed second reading in Senate which seeks to take away some of the powers of the EFCC and ICPC in asset recovery and create a centralized asset recovery firm. Question mark, because we ask ourselves, do we need so many different agencies to be involved in, investigating, prosecuting recovery of assets? I think it's a conversation to be had, because what people ask now that, okay, fine, the units have been handed over. What will happen to them now? That's what we want to do. We want to follow the money to the very end, not that EFCC says they have handed over to the federal government. What happens next? We want to follow this story to its logical conclusion until these assets are auctioned or, whatever they do with them. We just want to make sure that we are kept in the loop until the final conclusion, and not that we hear that, people who are close to, those in power have now miraculously acquired these properties or have found some, benevolent use for them. So I think that's my prime focus.
All right, then, Dr. Rufai.
Okay, the EFCC, under the Enabling Act, the extant law, has powers to seize assets, has powers to push for forfeiture of assets, has powers to dispose of assets that have been forfeited. And so in this particular matter, the EFCC has acted within the authority of the law. Now, this particular case, when it first came up, the EFCC pushed for an interim order of forfeiture, which was granted December 2, 2024. Then he pushed for a final order of forfeiture, final forfeiture order. That was granted on December 24, 2024. Now, at that time, there were speculations about the ownership of the 753 buildings or estate, whatever it is called, units. Now, when it was April 2025, Mr. Godwin Emefiele approached the Federal Capital Territory High Court to ask for an extension of time for him to appeal in the case because he was an interested party in the matter. That's what happened in the court of Justice Onwegbuzie. And Justice Onwegbuzie ruled that the matter had become functus officio. In other words, the matter had been settled, the matter had been determined. So, having been functus officio, it was on the basis of that that the EFCC now has proceeded to dispose of the assets on behalf of the federal government. So I've given a quick rundown of what the law says. Emefiele at the time said he wasn't aware of the matter in court, but the judge said, look, this matter was in all the prominent papers. If you were the owner, if you were in an interested party, you acted out of time also. Anyway, now they are handing over the 753 units to the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. That ceremony was concluded yesterday. The Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development says it will carry out technical evaluation, it will evaluate other things that need to be done, it will complete the assets, it will sell the assets under the Restored Hope agenda, and that the public will be, renewed hope agenda, and the public will be free to come and purchase these assets. Well, the whole idea of forfeiture of assets is that persons who have been found guilty of committing a crime and all of that, are not allowed to enjoy the proceeds of the crime. However, the big question that we can insist upon is transparency and accountability. Because this Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, that they say they will sell the assets, they have to be fair.
Yes.
The process has to be transparent.
Yes.
In fact, maybe certain categories of government officials should not be allowed to bid for those properties.
Yes.
In fact, the people who are going to dispose of the assets, they must not be beneficiaries.
Yes.
Their relatives must not be beneficiaries. Let it not be that, you say you are clearing a process of crime, and then some other people will engage in criminal enterprise and capture the same assets. Because this is Nigeria. That's what we can call for.
All right, then let's move on to our next story very quickly. As citizens continue to raise concerns about the conditions of streets across Lagos State, enforcement agencies are stepping up action. Officials of the Lagos Waste Management Authority and the Lagos State Environmental Sanitation Corps have arrested a man by the name Ogunbadejo Olawale for dumping waste by the roadside in the Alakpere area. The arrest was announced by the Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, in a post on his X handle on Wednesday. Wahab said the suspect was caught red-handed dumping refuse illegally in public. Now, I think we had a story, I think it was on Tuesday, where we were talking about the states. We were talking about the fact that Lagos is smelling people, of course, dumping refuse. Yeah. And there's so much that can be done. But, of course, Tokunbo Wahab very, very eagerly shared this arrest to show that, okay, the citizens also have a hand in it, and we're doing what we can to make sure that the consequences actually, match the actions. Your thoughts?
Yes, it's good he shared the arrest. We totally condemn. I think there's even the Lagos State environmental laws of 2017, and their penalties already meted at. In fact, one section, I think section 27, was talking about hazardous waste and everything. You know, you can't be jailed and kept in prison. I'm happy Tokunbo Wahab is doing it, but please, Tokunbo Wahab, my very good friend and brother, go to all those drainage areas and clear them. They are smelly.
It's still there.
All these things are still there. Go to the markets. Go to other areas that are inundated with dirt that is a filth, that is smelly. Another thing I've always wanted to tell you, see, it's an eyesore on Lagos. That when you're coming to Lagos, the first thing you see is a dump site, Olusosun, that big dump site. We should find a way to be able to evacuate and do a lot to be able to clean up areas like that. When we say Lagos is smelly, because a lot of people have also pictured along tribal lines that it's a waste of time. Some funny people are saying, leave Lagos. It's a waste of time. See, everybody is here to add to the talent and development of Lagos. It is all of our Lagos.
Yes.
When we say it's smelling, it's not as an indictment on government alone. It's a call to action for all of us to fix it. That's just it. Also, people roaming around. There's also an increased number of people sleeping on the streets now and things like that. These are things you should be able to work on. Most gutters are in a deplorable state. You know, I keep saying this. Wodimaya, I'm not necessarily saying we should do this. Wodimaya did a challenge of how clean Kigali was. And he sat in a gutter at some point. But go and check. Most of the drainage gutters are so dirty in Lagos, and they bring out the dirt and they put them on the road, on the side of the road.
And then the rain falls
so
and
clean the
washes
gutters, clean the streets, clean everywhere. I was in Abidjan. I need to write because of that. I was in Abidjan. From 10 p.m., if you stay around Plateau in Abidjan, you start to hear the street sweepers start to sweep from 10 p.m. once the road is clear. We need to be able to clean Lagos that way. Get to work. Kudos on this, but get to work. Let's partner on how we can clean Lagos. Lagos is smelly.
All right, then. Let's take our next story very quickly. The Nigerian Correctional Service has announced a 5 million naira cash reward for anyone providing credible information leading to the recapture of inmates who escaped from the Medium Custodial Center in Ilesha, Osun State. The announcement was made in a statement signed by Umar Abubakar, the Deputy Controller of Corrections and Public Relations Officer for the service on Wednesday. Now, according to the statement, he's urging the public to report any information about the escaped inmates' whereabouts to the nearest security agency. All reports will be treated with strict confidentiality and informants' identities will remain anonymous. The escape happened overnight on Tuesday after heavy rainfall caused the facility's old perimeter wall to collapse, allowing 7 inmates to flee. The breach occurred around 2 a.m. The escaped inmates are John Michael, age 34, Toby Akin, age 19, Eze Nweze, 40, Nina Lowo Yusuf, 28, Matthew Ogunjimi, 20, Kabiru Oyedun, 39, and Olalekan Ajofoyinbo, who is 45. You know, this situation where once it rains, the fences collapse and then we see inmates able to just make their way freely out of correctional facilities. I mean, fine, I get what they're trying to do to sensitize the people to, if they've seen them, to put their names forward. But what if that doesn't happen? That means these people have kind of just made their way out of it. Vumbai.
Well, it's not the first time this is happening.
Yeah.
I believe Kuje Prison also had a similar situation. But it just goes back to the fact that a lot of these custodial centers, if not all, were not actually built for purpose. We are repurposing them now into medium security, maximum security prisons. But that's not what their original purpose was. So it's now time for us to, as part of investment in that sector, to actually build fit for purpose, I know we call them correctional centers, fit for purpose, that are well secure, that are, created with the environment in mind, with the conditions that we know it's going to rain, the climate change, all of those factors, so that the walls don't crumble when it rains and you have inmates just walking out. But on a lighter note, I was following this on social media, and some people in Osun State were saying, quick 5 million, let me go into town and see how at least, let me see if I can get alerts.
No, the problem with the correctional centers in Nigeria is that the prisons are old. Yes. They are dilapidated structures. They need to be rebuilt. They need to be modernized. They need to be given facilities. They are over-congested. That's why when rain falls, either in Benin or in Ilesha, the walls will collapse and inmates can escape. This medium custodial center in Ilesha was built in 1943, colonial times. And the capacity at that time was for 600 prisoners. Now, if you go to that prison, either this one or the one in Kuje or the one in Abeokuta or the one in, there's one in Odogbulu, right? They have a prison. Anyway, I'm just joking. What I'm saying is that these are colonial structures, that cannot stand, the vagaries of weather. Yeah. And which is why I find it interesting that the Minister of the Interior, Olubunmi Ojo, part of his program is to see how these prison centers can be restructured. And this Ilesha Medium Custodial Center is one of those prisons on the list of those prisons that will be rebuilt and modernized. And I hope that under his watch, the Ministry of Interior will get the necessary support to rebuild, these various prisons so that we don't have this problem of inmates escaping and people scrambling to collect 5 million naira.
Yeah. All right, then thank you so much. Let's take our good news report of the day. The Olu of Warri, His Royal Majesty Ogiame Atuashe III, has been named one of the 100 most reputable Africans for 2025 by the Reputation Poll International in partnership with the Global Reputation Forum. The recognition, of course, celebrates his contributions to leadership, cultural preservation, and community development in the Warri Kingdom. The award ceremony took place in Johannesburg, South Africa, with notable African dignitaries in attendance, including former South African Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo. And in his speech, the Olu of Warri stressed the need for Afrocentric governance and the role of traditional rulers in Africa's progress. Congratulations to the Olu of Warri. He keeps making us proud, putting Nigeria on the map, of course. Yeah. This is really good news, and I know that this is just the beginning for him. Quickly, 30 seconds each, so that we can go.
Oba Iwere. It's no longer Oba Iwere. I mean, he's an Olu of class.
Yes.
And it shows. You see, in this country where when you look at some traditional rulers and you look at the way they behave like Jaguda in public, you don't respect them. He has shown class. He has shown panache.
Yes.
He has uplifted his kingdom. And I think others should learn from him.
Yeah,
Not the kind of traditional rulers that all you hear stories of them beating their wives in public. Moving on.
Double celebration because today is Olori Atuashe III's birthday, her 39th birthday today. So wishing her a very wonderful day and a great new year added to her life. And I pray that they continue to find the strength and the grace to take this modern rulership, forward. Yes. I think they're fantastic role models for what traditional rulership can look like.
100%.
Yes. Congratulations to the Olu of Warri, the father of all members of the Warri Kingdom. But apart from the recognition, the award, which is well-deserved, I think the more important part was the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that the Olu of Warri signed with the king of the Zulu Kingdom, Zweli Litini. I think that's the pronunciation of his name. They signed a Memorandum of Understanding for, relationship between the Zulu Kingdom and also, the Warri Kingdom, commercial, cultural, collaboration. And I think that is important because modern diplomacy, rather what is called new diplomacy, simply means that it's not only government that does diplomacy. There are other non-state actors like traditional rulers and persons, business people, who can even on behalf of a country or a community engage in diplomacy. This is a very good, positive example of new diplomacy. And I think that the Nigerian government and the South African government should support this collaboration between the Zulu Kingdom and the Warri Kingdom.
Fantastic. Well, very well said. Well, that's all I have for you on what's trending today, tomorrow, Friday, my favorite day of the week.
And that's all.